The Mary Celeste was one of the biggest maritime mysteries in history, but that ship had a life outside of just that one incident. And let me tell you what, it's a rabbit hole. Oh dear God, I didn't realize what I was diving into when I started researching this. Before she was the Mary Celeste, she was called Amazon. She was a ship made up in Nova Scotia in late 1860. And this is where she would get her start, being one of the primary breadwinning ships for the local community she served in. But things did not get off to a great start. On her maiden voyage, the captain caught pneumonia. And the very first thing that the Amazon would deliver to port was the body of its first captain. So, an auspicious start there. Now, like I said, things for a while operated pretty well for the Amazon, at least in terms of getting around and not really having too many issues. Well, eventually there would be an issue. See, she was kind of losing money, and ownership of the vessel was kind of pushing for more money, so they ended up sending the ship up north of the Bay of Fundy up in Nova Scotia past a time of year it wasn't supposed to be there. See, the insurance company wasn't going to insure the vessel if it went north of this certain area due to just treacherous winter storms, and insurance companies going, yeah, we're not going to insure something that you're definitely going to, injure if you're there. And that's what happened. It ended up running aground up there. Now, after she ran aground, her luck would really turn south. So after that, she is scuttled and sold to someone else. However, it's very possible the person that it got sold to had an investment in getting it cheaper and had somebody else that went out and inspected it say it was too wrecked to continue. So it's very possible that that was her first fraudulent transaction and that the damage to the ship was not as extensive as has been reported so that the buyer could get it cheaper. After that, they would then take her to New York City and try to get her flagged in the U.S. But see, when you try to flag or change flags on a foreign-owned vessel, there's tariffs and licensing fees, and, well, he really didn't feel like paying that. So he basically went out and said, look, hey, she got scuttled, I had to rebuild her, I had to do all this work on her, it cost twice as much as all these fees would have cost, so she's basically a new ship, so I'm not paying them. And then went on to do the landlord special and just change her name. It's at this point she goes from being the Amazon to the Mary Celeste. Now, just slapping a new name on a ship is only going to work so long, so this thing got sold quick, fast, and in a hurry. It was sold to one Mr. James Winchester, because there's not a mystery out there that apparently doesn't involve a Winchester. And just like the other Winchesters we all know and love, Mr. James Winchester's luck went straight south from the get-go, because very soon after buying the ship, the taxman showed up. They wanted all the tariffs and licensing fees from that, bringing that foreign-owned vessel into New York. But Mr. Winchester knew nothing of this, and pretty much realized he was being blackmailed, so he took him to court. And at great expense, he won his court case because he was not privy to the information that none of the tariffs and taxes on it had been paid. It wasn't his fault. However, that would not be the end of his bad luck, because shortly after that, after an assessor looked at the ship, he pretty much came and said, oh yeah, half this ship is rotten. These timbers, the planks, all this stuff's got to be redone. So it looks like all that money that was put into refurbishing her post-grounding in Nova Scotia was a lie and was pretty much just sold under the table to try and get it out of his hands and make a profit, and Mr. Winchester kind of had to eat it. Mr. Winchester spent a lot of money getting the vessel seaworthy again and bulking her up a bit. So to recuperate some of those costs, he sells part of the ownership of it. Part of that ownership gets sold to Captain Benjamin Briggs, the captain that in a few months after this would lead the vessel on one of the most mysterious voyages of all time that in no way whatsoever has ever been exaggerated in history at all, and definitely not because of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. On what would basically be her maiden voyage with a new name and basically a brand new ship at this point, she would take just over 1,700 barrels of alcohol from New York to Italy. But en route, the crew would suffer a yet unknown fate, as those that came upon her set adrift at sea would find a ship in pristine condition, with everything in its plate, with food still left on the table, a clock running backwards on a wall, and no sign of what happened to the crew. Except none of that is actually kind of true. So it is true that a ship that had left a few days behind her came up upon her. When they first came upon her, they realized something was wrong. She's not really sailing under control. She's kind of bobbing to and fro. Her rigging's messed up in a way that's not going to allow it to sail efficiently. And so they instantly know something's wrong. So they come up upon the ship, try to flag her the entire time, getting no answers before they send a crew over to inspect the ship. And what they found was not everything in pristine condition. In fact, everything was in a general period of disarray. Everything was wet. There was water pretty much in all spaces. It was still seaworthy and there was no problems with it, but nothing had been lashed down. Hatches hadn't been closed. Everything was kind of blown open in odd ways, which that kind of is true. So they had no idea what was going on. The only thing that was actually missing was the life rafts and some navigational equipment. And the captain's deck log as well, that was gone. However, everything else was still there. And as far as a clock spinning backwards on the wall, well, that is actually true because somebody put the clock back wrong and the crew noted and annotated that. But in later retellings, that part's just not mentioned. Now, why do we have so many fantastical tales about what happened to her? Well, one of the people we can blame is Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Yes, the writer of everyone's favorite detective, played by Butternut Cumbersquatch. I can basically say his name however I want, and you're still going to understand who it is. Now, it's not like he was the only one doing it. He's just one of the more notable people doing it. See, several writers at the time kind of did their own thing, taking artistic liberties with the story of the Mary Celeste, and the general public was just so enamored by it that they believed whatever they were reading, proving that just some things never change. I know way too many people in my real life that read something stupid and now believe the earth is flat. But back to the mystery at hand, to actually dig through all the fluff thanks to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and getting on to the actual mystery at hand. So what happened to the crew of the Mary Celeste? Truth is, we don't know, but we can glean a few things that didn't happen. See, over the years, several theories have been floated, like aliens abducted them, rogue tornadoes sucked them out of the ship, pirates attacked them, but like none of those hold any weight. For one, okay, maybe rough weather, like a waterspout could have done it, but at the time you would have assumed there had been more damage to the ship. Most of the stuff wrong with the ship was just stuff that no one had done recently. No one had redone the rigging in bad weather. No one had strapped anything down. So everything was just kind of thrown and all over the place, and water was everywhere because no one was cleaning it up. So it's not likely that they hit a storm like that, or it would have actually damaged the rigging instead of just everything falling apart over time. Pirates make no sense either because nothing was stolen. And come on, you mean to tell me pirates are going to invade a ship and not touch a single one of the 1,701 barrels of alcohol in the hold? Yeah, get fucked with that. And, I mean, I guess aliens is a possibility. So what could have actually have made all of them leave the boat in a hurry, thinking that they might return or at least might not have a chance to, and take enough with them to actually try to navigate? Well, the answer lies in that 1,701 barrels of alcohol, actually. Now, this theory holds the most weight because it's actually kind of been tested out and found to be plausible. But all those alcohol barrels will slowly give off alcohol vapor down in the hold. And if the hold of the ship wasn't built or ventilated good enough, that alcohol vapor would have kind of just settled up there. Now, it was described that a couple of the deckhands, though being good deckhands and good sailors, weren't necessarily the brightest of the bunch. So it's more than likely someone came down there to look at the hold, holding a lit flame, and caused a small explosion. Remember how I said a couple of those hatches were blown open? Well, that kind of explains how the crew described them as being blown open, not left open. They were kind of bent backwards at odd angles or something reported like that. So they could tell something had happened to those hatches. They just didn't put two and two together at the time. Now, though that would have caused a fireball to come out of there, it would have happened actually so fast that nothing would have been scorched or caught on fire. Like I said here a while back, they tested this idea and actually proved you could get the explosion without leaving any burn marks or sign that it happened, because all those fumes would have lit up and just evaporated before they had a chance to actually burn anything. However, the crew wouldn't have known that. Someone goes down into the hold and all of a sudden there's a big explosion and you're carrying alcohol, buttholes get a little bit puckered. And I can attest that someone would be dumb enough to do that, because I used to work in the oil fields, and then on a site next to me, we had a guy stick half his body up into an oil tank and then went, man, I can't see anything. I need to see how much his oil is in here. I don't want to go get my flashlight. I'll use this lighter. He lived, but he has a brand new multi-layered definition of the words explosive diarrhea. Now, it's not the only theory. There are a lot of theories out there. But like I said, the others involve sober pirates, space aliens, or supernatural weather. You choose which one you want to believe. Though the mystery still lives on, that's pretty much the end of the story for the mystery. However, that's not the end of the story for the Mary Celeste. She would be towed into port for the salvage fee for finding her. However, the courts would always look at that crew with suspicious eyes because they didn't really believe their story and tried to take him to court to say that they were the ones responsible for it, either worked in cahoots with the other captain for insurance or had killed the crew for the salvage. However, they could never prove that in court and they were let go. But they were still screwed over because they only got a small portion of the finder's fee just because the courts did find one last way to just shove that fist up in there. The Mary Celeste would be sold at auction once again, and just like before, she would continuously lose money for those that purchased her. In the end, her final owner ended up scuttling her and running her aground on a coral reef outside of Haiti on purpose to sink the ship, because he'd loaded the hold with a bunch of useless junk and then overinflated the insurance claim to try and make a profit off of her. He would eventually be found and charged with a crime called bartery, which was if you had purposely ran your ship aground. The punishment for bartery was a capital offense, so they'd hang you. So a lot of people did not like being on a jury and finding someone guilty of bartery, because everyone's like, yeah, it's a crime, but no one died. So a lot of people that got charged with bartery got off the hook. As did he. He still got charged with part of his insurance scam, but in the end, he would die 3 months later, broke and penniless, the final owner of the Mary Celeste. If it really wasn't for the mystery of what happened to her crew, the only thing she would have been known for was lies, deceit, and tax evasion. Ain't gonna lie, though, that was some pro-level tax evasion. Oh, yeah. If you could hit those like, comment, subscribe buttons, that would be awesome too. You see, unlike sober pirates, they're real.